Guys, welcome to today's vlog, and we are going to focus on HIV exposed child. How we follow up this child from when they are born up to 1 year and 6 months when we discharge them from taking the ARV prophylaxis and also septrin. Guys, I am your 247 online nurse, and thank you guys for your supporting this channel, and I am on my journey to 1000 subscribers within the next 1 month and a half. So guys, I'm requesting for your support. Also, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and also like this video. Also comment so that I can know how you feel and also you're thinking about this video. So guys, let's get started. So when you talk of HIV exposed child, this is a child who is born of a HIV positive mother. So after birth of this child, the child is put on ARV prophylaxis, and these are syrup, and they are usually two. So we put them on the ARV prophylaxis. So at 6 weeks, when they come for their first visit or the first contact with this child, the first thing, they're immunized because already they're at 6 weeks. They're given the first immunizations. And then we take a blood sample called the DNA PCR. It's usually a dry blood spot. So when you talk of DNA PCR, this is a very sensitive and accurate test that can be able to pick the virus after a few days or after a few weeks of infection. So we've already given them the immunization. We've already taken blood to be tested for DNA PCR. We also add a septrin. Septrin is an antibiotics that protect this baby from getting any opportunistic infections. So in total, we are going to give this baby 2 drugs. We are going to give the ARV prophylaxis. Initially from birth, they're usually 2. So at 6 weeks, we are going to drop one of them called zidovudine. So we are going to remain with nevirapine syrup, and we've already added septrin syrup. And they're going to continue with these 2 until we discharge them from breastfeeding, and also until we discharge them from now that they are not exposed at 1 year and 6 months, that is at 18 months. So if the test at 6 weeks, the one we are calling the DNA PCR, turns out to be negative, so we still continue with the follow-up. We are still going to give them the nevirapine, the septrin, and other follow-up, the monthly follow-up for the under 5s, that is the weighing, the height, the weight, and knowing how they're doing, the nutrition support. From 6 weeks, if the test turned negative, now at 6 months, we are going to have another DNA PCR test. So at 6 months, this child is brought to the clinic, and we are going to repeat another DNA PCR for this child. And don't forget, this child is on exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. Don't introduce any feeds to this child, because already their gastrointestinal system has not developed. So a minute you start introducing or weaning this child before 6 months, there is high risk of this child contracting the virus. So at 6 months, we do the DNA PCR. We're still going to give this baby, there's an immunization usually give them called the measles immunization, because already they are exposed to they are HIV exposed infant. So in addition to the tests, we also do the immunization for them. And still, we are going to continue with the nevirapine as long as they're breastfeeding, and we're also going to continue with septrin syrup. So for the children's drugs, they depend with the weight, how much are they weighing in each visit. So we are going to add the amount as the weight increases. So we are done with the 6 months. So this child will still continue with the follow-up, the weighing, the nutrition support, the adherence counseling for the mother up to 1 year. So at 1 year, when they come for the visit, we are also going to carry out the DNA PCR for this child, and we're also going to continue with the septrin syrup and also nevirapine syrup if at all this child is still breastfeeding. The mother decides to stop this child breastfeeding at 6 months. It means that we are going to give the child nevirapine for the next 6 weeks after complete cessation of breastfeeding. So the earliest this child who has been stopped breastfeeding at 6 months, the earliest he or she can stop taking nevirapine it's at 7 months and a half. So if at 1 year the mother is still breastfeeding, we are still going to continue with nevirapine syrup and also continue with septrin syrup, and we're also going to carry out the DNA PCR for this child. If it turns out to be negative, we're still going to continue with the follow-up of this child and the mother. So at 1 year and 6 months, this is the final clinic if at all this child turns out to be negative for the antibody test. So at 1 year and 6 months, this is where we do an antibody test. This is the usual or the routine HIV testing that we do to an adult. So if it turns out to be HIV negative, this child is discharged from all sort of taking the ARV prophylaxis and also septrin. So at this age, 1 year and 6 months, if negative, we discharge all sort of drugs. So we've only talked of if at all this baby was negative for the DNA PCR we took at 6 weeks, at 6 months, and at 1 year. So what if this child or the DNA PCR test turned out to be positive at one point? So either at 6 weeks, either at 6 months, or at 1 year. So what happens? If it turns out to be positive at 6 weeks, this is a child that is started on ARV as soon as possible if it turns to be positive. If it's positive, start the ARV drugs, and then you'll take another DNA PCR to confirm if the tests were really positive. So if it turns out to be positive, continue with your ARV. Then take another sample to test for the viral load of this patient. So now we've looked at this HIV exposed child, the follow-up, when they are HIV negative and when they are positive. And something else, we've already said that this child is exclusively breastfed for 6 months. And if the mother is willing to breastfeed up to 2 years, 2.5 years, please take note, this is a child who is supposed to be put on nevirapine syrup as long as they are breastfeeding. So guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you've learned something from this video. Please comment. Let me know what you think about this video, whether you've learned something from this video, and see you in my next video. I've been your host, Ann Kim, your 247 online nurse. Bye bye for now. See you on my next video.